Around 130 men are diagnosed with prostate cancer each day in the UK. The STAMPEDE trial is investigating new ways to improve survival for men with high risk or advanced disease. In June 2017, it released results looking at the effect of adding a drug called Abiraterone to standard hormone therapy. Matthew Sides, project lead on the STAMPEDE trial at the MRC Clinical Trials Unit at UCL, explains how the trial was done.
Patients were randomised into two equal-sized groups for this comparison. One of the groups had the usual standard of care, which is based in hormone therapy, some of whom also had radiotherapy. And the other group had exactly the same treatment, but they also had abiraterone and prednisolone, a steroid which is given as part of the marketing licence for abiraterone.
In a nutshell, the trial was for men starting long-term hormone therapy for the first time. So this is either men with locally advanced disease with poor risk features like high PSA, high Gleason score, things we know predict a bad outcome, or men with disease that had already spread at the time they were diagnosed, starting permanent hormone therapy in the vein.
So, did adding abiraterone to standard hormone therapy improve how well these men do?
So if we look at, say, 3 years after randomisation, translates into an improvement from about 76 in every 100 men on the control arm still alive to 83 out of 100 men on the research arm still alive. So that's an improvement of about 7 in every 100 men extra who are still alive after 3 years.
The other endpoint that we used for the earlier analyses was failure-free survival, the time taken for men to relapse from their first-line therapy. So that was improved by about 70%, which is, again, we think an improvement of pretty much unprecedented magnitude in a metastatic or advanced cancer population. And the second thing was significant skeletal complications like spinal cord compression, fracture, surgery to bone or radiotherapy for bone pain. These were halved by the use of abiraterone, and not just prior to relapse, but post-relapse they were halved.
So, abiraterone is clearly very effective at treating prostate cancer. But is this improvement in survival at the expense of greater side effects?
So 1 in 3 men on the control arm had a severe toxicity. The men on the abiraterone comparison are going to be exposed to that risk, plus any risk coming from the abiraterone and the steroid that's given alongside it as well. We saw an increase in the number of men with a severe toxicity from 33 in every 100 on the control arm to 47 in every 100 on the research arm.
So there were some predictable side effects, changes in certain blood chemistry measurements, which meant that we had to either adjust the dose or in some cases stop the drug completely. Some men got raised blood pressure. Again, this was a known side effect and was generally quite easy to manage. There are some side effects which may or may not be associated with the abiraterone, like heart attacks and strokes, because these are side effects of standard hormone therapy anyway. So it's a bit difficult to be sure whether these were side effects we'd have seen anyway without abiraterone.
So what do the results from STAMPEDE mean for men with prostate cancer? Robin Millman is a patient representative on the STAMPEDE trial management group.
We've now got something that can extend failure-free survival, or as a patient might say, disease progression. My PSA isn't going up, my scans aren't getting any worse, I'm not having clinical symptoms, and of course the longer that goes out, then the longer overall survival goes out as well. So I think it's really great for patients, and it provides an option now in the armoury that clinicians and patients have got to fight the disease.
For one thing, what it means is that if my cancer does come back, I have much greater chance of, well, seeing it off again, or at least being in a situation where I can live with it for a reasonable amount of time, have a reasonable life expectancy. These results tend to make me think, well, the midday is obviously going to be numbered, but maybe the number's going to be a lot bigger.
Maurice Groves is one of the men who took part in the abiraterone comparison of the STAMPEDE trial. Professor David Durnley from the Royal Marsden Hospital explains where we go from here.
So the next challenge is to try and make this treatment as available as possible for as many men who may benefit from it as we can. Now, this is going to take a considerable amount of thought, and we're going to have to think about whether the economics of using the abiraterone drug early, how that relates to perhaps keeping it in reserve, how the benefits relate to using chemotherapy, what are the relative pluses and minuses of those two approaches. There'll be other issues to think about. This is extending the indication for the use of abiraterone, which is at the moment in patients who have failed standard treatment, so the licensing will have to be changed to men who are starting treatment. These things need to be addressed as well.
I think there are regulatory challenges, there are funding challenges which will make it harder to change the standard of care immediately, but I think it will change. In general, I think it's a massive tribute to all of the more than 9,000 men who've gone in the trial so far. The trial has produced very, very important practice-changing results which have a big impact on men not just in the UK but worldwide, and will do for many years to come.